Welcome back to the Bootleg Corner. I'm still your host, the Bootleg God, and I had to bring my face back to the camera to do this wrap up of the Penguin series, for which episode 9 came out on Monday and Sunday, depending on where you are around the world. We also found out once again that Mr. Oswald Cobb is just as diabolical and as nasty as he was promised to be by the showrunners at the beginning of this episode. Now, as at the ending of episode 8, I predicted some things, not some things. One thing, by the way, that's if you've been watching, I said that Gia Falcone would be the one to blow the case up by going to the police and reporting Sophia Falcone to them. And it turned out that prediction was wrong, but not wrong totally, because the person who actually went to the police was, in the end, was Oswald Cobb, even though he did it indirectly. But at least I got some of the variations of the predictions right. But that aside, at the end of episode 8, Oswald Cobb was captured by this police officer working for Sophia Falcone, and that was why I predicted that Gia Falcone would be the one to go to the police and blow it up and somehow find a way to rescue Oswald Cobb. Another thing I was also talking about was Victor. Victor had been sent to go bring all the gangsters that Oswald had united in episode 7 or episode 8. I can't really remember the episode right now. But Victor had been sent to go bring these guys together, who Oswald Cobb had formed a new alliance with, so they can go in and fight for Oswald again and cement their partnership and all that. But we all saw these guys at the first chance of trouble, the first chance of even going into anything that could be nasty for them, they all backed out immediately, saying that what they needed was the product and not really Oswald. So we can see again that the streets are just as treacherous and as unforgiving as they've ever been. Now, this episode, I think it began with Mrs. Cobb being taken on a psychological trip by Dr. Rush to relieve the events that happened after Oswald killed his brothers. Now, I also said something before, for which I want to reiterate, and I was wrong at the time, because I said that Mrs. Cobb's mental lapses might have been a result of the the unexplained loss of her 2 children. And now we are finding out that Mrs. Cobb even knew about the real truth of how her children died. So her mental lapses cannot even say that it was because of the unexplained death of her 2 kids, because she knew all this while that Oswald was the one who locked his 2 brothers inside a tunnel underneath some reservoir and left them there to drown. And we can see that she even planned to kill him at some point by telling their neighborhood gangster Rex to do the job. But we can also see that along the line, she decided not to go through with it for some reason of her own, and we can only speculate what those reasons could be. But we can see that she ended up making Oswald the monster he needed to be, even though he was already on the trajectory that trajectory already. But we can see that her presence in his life gave him that, do I call it legitimacy, or do I call it, I don't even know the actual word to put behind that, but her presence in his life gave him extra, if there was no motivation, it's not like there was no motivation before, but extra motivation to be just as nasty and as evil as it turned out to be. Now, when the next scene opened and we saw Oswald on the chair tied down after all, he had been captured by Sophia Falcone, I looked at what they used to tie him up, and I just knew that there was something amiss. Oswald was tied up with duct tape. You went through all the trouble, you bombed the man's place of business, you captured his mother, and time for you now to administer your justice or revenge, whatever you call it, and you are tying up your enemy with duct tape. I noticed that I talked about it on my Twitter account. Like that sequence was not gelling for me at all. You don't do all that, find your greatest enemy, like you set up everything perfectly and you are tying him up with duct tape. That was negligence. That was malpractice to me at that point. The moment I saw the duct tape, I just knew that there was going to be something fishy happening around this part. That's why I wasn't surprised when Oswald broke out of his shackles and started shooting up the place, because tying up someone with duct tape, a man as big as that, you are just asking for trouble. But the standout part of that sequence was when Oswald refused to admit to his part in killing his brothers, even though he found out that his mother had known all along. Now, if we hadn't been shown the flashbacks of Oswald's life prior to this moment, we would have thought that Oswald was telling the truth, because look at this man's face. This does not look like the face of a man who is telling lies. This looks like a man confused about where these rumors are coming from. But we have seen the flashbacks. We know he did it. His mother knows he did it. Like Sophia has followed his mother on the psychological journey, heard about everything. Everyone in this room knows Oswald is. Look at Sophia's face. She's even shocked that Oswald is willing to carry his charade so far. They're going to cut off his mother's pinky finger, and Oswald is still swearing innocence. I mean, if anything, if you've been watching this show for all this while and you've been rooting for Oswald, this particular moment of Oswald refusing to admit that he robbed his mother of her two other children because he thought he alone deserved his mother's love should have been enough to cancel Oswald in the black book of everyone. But he's still the main character of this series, so there's one subconscious or unconscious part of our bodies and our psyches that still wants him to win. And win he did, because he finally ended up escaping from this scene and carrying his mother and running away. Now, I mentioned it in the beginning about Gia Falcone being the one to tell the police about Sophia Falcone's involvement in the murder of her parents and all the other Falcones. But it seemed like Sophia Falcone's visit scared her into submission and she had already kept quiet. But Oswald was not one to let an opportunity pass by. He saw a wide gaping hole, a way to give himself legitimacy and prop himself up, cleaning himself of all the dirt of his activities in Gotham, went to Councilman Haley and told him that Sophia Falcone was responsible for everything that had gone wrong in Gotham so far. And Oswald is also talking about cleaning up his image, and I won't be surprised in the next time we see Penguin if he's going into some political movement, because the way he was talking in this episode, it seems like politics will be something he would very much like to try his hand in, and I expect him to be ridiculously successful here, because there is absolutely nothing that Oswald will not be willing to do to guarantee success. Now, another thing that made me laugh in this scene, in this episode, was the way the Gotham gangsters immediately ran off to meet Sophia the second she asked for a meeting. These are guys that Oswald had to beg to come together in an obscure location at night, in an open location. And all these guys brought guns. They were standing off in a man. Everybody was looking mean, threatening violence with their faces and all that. And Sophia called them to the round table. All of them went quietly. Nobody was brandishing guns. Nobody was standing off in a man. Everybody was just like waiting for their master to come and talk to them. And that's that respect that old money and old gangster relation can only buy. You cannot get that in the streets. You have to be an old pillar of the society. Now, one thing I've mentioned about this series before is the willingness of these gangsters to make deals even if they know that they will not be keeping to the terms of agreement. That has happened more than 5 times in this series, and now again with Sophia, when she was promising the gangsters that she would give them access to her house and her drug connects because she was leaving the game. Every single agreement with every gangster in this movie has ended up with one side betraying the other, and every time the gangsters just, I don't know, it feels like it is an accepted outcome. Nobody's even protesting. Everybody knows that they would go back and rewrite and redraw and reshape whatever agreements they've made in the beginning, but they just let things slide for now as usual, because they know that in the end, both sides will find a way to make things go better on their own end. But moving on, Victor and Link were up to some of the other plans of their own, planning to run Mr. Zhao out of town, and it seems they were not the only ones together in that agreement, because most of the second in command to all the other gangs went after their bosses and just wiped all of them off the face of the earth. But for Sophia Falcone, she had already given them the incentive to bring Oswald Cobb to her, and on her own she's also fucking up the deal she has already made, because she's burning down the house she promised whoever would bring Oswald's head to her doorstep. But in the end, we saw how that went down. Link and Victor cooked up a very, very good scheme, betrayed Zhao, shot everyone else there, and we can see Sophia looking at Victor with a very surprised face that she could not believe that this fresh-faced guy was part of the scheme. You know that face, that feeling you have when that newbie, that guy you didn't expect to be dangerous, is now running with the street guys. Like, if you look at Sophia's face, you can clearly see that reaction in her. That Victor of yesterday is now the one pointing a gun at her and shooting at her guys. But we can fast forward towards the end. I wasn't really surprised that Oswald did not kill Sophia, because I was thinking to myself, what is the best revenge Oswald could give Sophia? Killing her would just be way too easy. But sending her back to Arkham Asylum or putting her in prison for crimes that, and he had already set everything in motion when he talked to Councilman Haley. So sending Sophia back to prison, back to Arkham Asylum, where she spent some of the worst years of her life. I mean, what better revenge than that could Oswald have cooked up? Once again, moving on past that, we saw that this movie is not just about the highs, the lows are also there as well. Oswald is coming to the hospital to celebrate with his mother, and that's another thing that is funny to me that's another funny incident to me from this episode. Oswald is coming to celebrate with his mother like he had just written off everything that happened when Sophia Falcone captured them. All the lies, everything his mother told him about how she hated him for years. His mother even stabbed him with a broken bottle. And Oswald is coming in with a bottle of wine, ready to crack it open and smile and dance and laugh and pretend as if the events of that very morning did not happen. So we can see that his mother is in no condition to celebrate with him, because the reports from the nurse and the doctor says that his mother has had a stroke and is now in a vegetative state, meaning she has fallen into a coma and will no longer be mobile or active for the foreseeable future. So for Oswald, this is a very much needed humbling moment, because he had been on a high following his victory over Sophia Falcone and the other mob bosses, and his mother's well-being right now, being in a state of jeopardy, is the required calm down that he needed, because he had been ecstatic throughout this period, coming in, popping bottles, laughing and all that. But the next scene is one of the coldest. Should I say the coldest? I think that was one of the most heart-wrenching scenes we've seen throughout the viewership of this series. Oswald and Victor sitting outside on the waterfront, talking about their future, their actions and their past, and Victor makes the mistake of mentioning the word family. The moment I heard him say that, I just knew he was cooked. Everyone who had been watching this series, if you've seen what Oswald has done to his family members, you would not want to be in a position to be someone Oswald calls family. And so the moment Victor said that, I just knew something bad was going to happen. But what I did not expect was for Oswald to do it there and then, choking out Victor. Victor is looking at him in the eyeball, seeing the person doing it. I mean, that's as cold and as cruel as you can get. It would have been kinder to just give him 2 bullets at the back of the head without him knowing. But Victor is looking at him, he's choking him out slowly, looking at the guy that he looked up to, the guy that he stayed in Gotham for, because he was supposed to leave Gotham with his girlfriend. He declined, he stayed in Gotham for this guy, helped him out of multiple scrapes, and now this is how he's being repaid. But for Oswald, this is just basically on-brand behavior for him. He knows he needs no weaknesses. He knows family is a weakness for him. We saw how Sophia Falcone and Sal Moroni tried to use his mother as a gambling chip, and he knows if he lets someone else get too close, they become a source of weakness for him, and it means for his enemies to attack him. So he has to do this. Like a leopard can't change his spots at this time, and also this is who he is. So as far as everyone feels sorry for Victor, this is very, very much on brand behavior for Oswald. Even after killing Victor, Oswald goes as far as taking his wallet, taking the remaining cash that's in it, taking out his driver's his ID card and throwing it away in the water. I mean, come on, you've already killed the guy and you are still taking out time to rob him. Now, a lot of people have been speculating, talking about why he did it and why he didn't do some other stuff. Like, popular consensus that he did it out of habit, or because he wanted Victor to be written off as an unknown person and all that stuff. But as the situation is, that sequence was very, very much brutal. But next up was Oswald in the penthouse that he promised his mother when he was still a little kid. He promised that he'll get her to a penthouse, and he finally got her to a penthouse, even though she is too immobile and too unhealthy to enjoy it. But he promised her a penthouse. He did not promise her he will get her there in pristine condition. So even if she's a vegetable, as Oswald says, she has gotten the penthouse he promised her, and there can be no complaints on her part. But the next thing after that is Oswald dancing with Eve, and he has Eve dressed up in his mother's clothes. And now that's just another reminder of Oswald's unhealthy relationship with his mother. And we will not forget that Eve was the one who led Sophia Falcone to his hideout, but Oswald doesn't know this. And as you can see, all things are fine and dandy at the moment. The ending of this episode has the bat signal going up in the sky to remind us that Batman is still around, even though he has been nowhere to be found for the majority, not even the majority, the totality of these 8 episodes. But still, we are still reminded that this is still Batman City, no matter if he's missing for now. And Oswald still has the reign over Gotham, and we'll have to see how the next Batman series goes. Batman Part 2 is scheduled to come out, I think, in 2025 or so, and we'll have to see how and what happens to Gotham and the Penguin and all the characters we've seen in this series so far. But as far as this series goes, I mean, this is the standout series for the year, and I said it, I think, as at episode 6 or episode 7. Will Ferrell should be in contention for every series award out there. He has been magnificent, he has been immense, he has been immaculate. Christine Milioti, what more can we say about her performance? Immaculate, impeccable, every kind word we can say about actresses and performance. We always talk about believability. One of the most important things we can get out of a movie. If a movie lacks believability, it falls dead on its face. And this movie, from the beginning to the ending, has given us every ounce and every particle of believability it could muster. So I have no complaints on my part for the majority of the script, barring a few stumbles and fumbles there, which I expected for a series of this caliber. Everything cannot be 100% perfect. Even in the best movie ever you can ever see, you've ever watched. But as far as this series was concerned, this was top tier work by everyone involved. I totally enjoyed it myself. I was anticipating the release of every episode every week, and I have to say, if you haven't seen the Penguin by now, let this review be a reminder and your cue to go do so. A lot of people were waiting for it to end, because a lot of people don't like waiting. I don't like waiting for an episode after episode. They like to wait till everything is finished and they just crash it at once. But if you've been waiting for the Penguin, this is exactly the right time for you to get into it. I'm still the bootlegger on the bootleg corner. Don't forget to subscribe. Hit me with your thoughts in the comment section. Keep it locked in, and I'll be back.